Speaking of that, your Vikings are having a rough go.
I think they're tanking it because they want this quarterback.
Dude, Kirk Cousins looks incredible. I don't know why they want to get rid of him. If
I
they
don't know.
had, I don't know what it is. It's like they have one of the best offenses in the NFL, yet they cannot win games. Makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, they turn the ball over like 2 or 3 times a game. That's pretty tough to win.
He's pretty good with the turnovers.
Yeah.
That's his one thing.
Like every game that I've watched, he's at a pick six from the end zone, and they brought it all the way back.
Still not as bad as Daniel Jones. He has 2 touchdowns this year and 2 pick sixes.
Yeah.
The defense has just as many touchdowns.
And they gave him $40 million for this year and next year. He's making $80 million for 2. So, yeah, if you are going off of how many touchdowns he's probably going to throw, he's probably going to throw like 8 touchdowns. So he's making like $5 million a touchdown this year.
Get it together, Daniel Jones.
Yeah, come on, bro.
I don't even know if that's going to be in the podcast, but if we keep this part.
Yeah.
Get it together, Daniel Jones, if you're listening to this.
Yeah, for some reason they call him Danny Dimes.
Danny's not worth a dime.
Yeah, he's not worth nothing.
All right. Welcome to the podcast today, Call for Fire. We're doing chapter 7 today, Letting It Go. And I like to hold on to things. So this was a tough one to read through, but I really liked it. This one probably had more underlines than any of the ones that I had gone through because I actually really needed to read this one and kind of figure it out. We was kind of joking with Mike on the walk down the stairs when my wife goes, "Letting it go, you're great at that." And I go, "Nope, holding on to it till I die." Just hold it in.
It's kind of like that old adage, like, what kill you makes you stronger. It's like, it's making me stronger.
Yeah.
No.
Definitely not making me stronger. If the closer you get to me, the more grays you see on my head. That's for everything that I've held in.
Oh man, that's insane.
Well, before I get to reading this one, is there anything you want to open us up with, or anything in your head before I get into reading this?
Yeah, I think letting it go is it's a multifaceted issue. So, I mean, we could talk on this for hours, but
maybe we will.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Or just 10 minutes, Let's just let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, letting it go. One of the very first lessons I learned when recovering from PTSD was not to allow my emotions to take the lead in my life. They often lie to you and can cause you unhealthy thinking or behaviors. In the process of getting to know myself, I learned that it is dangerous and unhealthy to make decisions when my emotions are involved and conversations are too heavy. A helpful habit I adopted was journaling about my emotions when I was in counseling. I started noticing a theme of what would spark my anger, and I learned that rejection made me angry, and somehow I managed to place myself in situations where rejection would be the outcome. Or was that really happening? Was it self-sabotaging behavior or a truth within me that I didn't want to recognize or face? No matter who I tried to talk to or befriend, I always felt rejected. The more rejection, the more anger I felt. When I talked to my wife, she asked me 3 questions that helped me put this into perspective. Question 1. What does this really mean to you? Is this rejection you're feeling from others real or from past hurts within you that are not healed? Question 2. Is this person really rejecting you or is your pride getting in the way? Question 3. Is this worth it for you to get so angry? After looking at why I would get angry, the real questions became, how are you going to let it go? Knowing is half the battle. It is easier to let go of things if you know why you are upset in the first place. What I found is that the more you practice letting go of why you are upset, the more you will realize your self-worth. Jesus is the only one who can heal the deepest wounds from your past. As we do our part, he always does his. When practicing this principle, you will start to become more important than the thing that is hurting you. After practicing this very principle, my anger went from lasting about a week to 10 minutes. I put the practice of letting it go into my life on a regular basis. And guess what? I started to become well and stronger from the inside out. The biggest thing to remember is that you're good enough and you have the power to choose. Sorry, throat got a little dry there. The biggest thing to remember is that you're good enough and you have the power to choose your own things that harm you or to let those things go. Practice the principles that will make you strong and well. The greatest thing I have ever heard about anger is when my pastor, Jesse Quiroz, told me, God didn't create you to carry anger. If God is love, who gave that to you, and why are you holding on to it? Powerful. Verses for this week. Proverbs 14:29. Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who has a hasty temper exalts folly. Proverbs 15:1. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. A lot to unpack there. Let's go back to the beginning of this. Something that you said when we started in the first thing. Not allowing my emotions to take the lead in my life. Would you say that you were an emotional person, or would you say that you just had strong emotions?
I would say I was an emotional person because I was not what I would say an intellectually strong person because my emotions would get the best of me. So when your mind is over your emotions, you can go regular, right? But if your emotions are over your intelligence, then that equals chaos. So I was in the point in my life where I would sit there and I would be, someone would say something to me, and there's only one reason why I get angry, only one, and that is when I feel rejection. That's why there's so much talk about rejection, that whole chapter. So when I was in outpatient, my social worker challenged me, and she says, okay, why are you getting angry? And, obviously those questions are in there. Why is this happening? What is the worth? And she made this triangle thing. And on the bottom triangle, it was like, the reason why I got angry is because of rejection. And then I'd be like, I would have to break it down why I was upset. And then after I broke down why I was upset, then I had to let go of my anger. And that was I would say it took me like 2 or 3 years to practice not getting angry. I mean, first I would hold on to my anger for 6 months, and then I would hold on to it for 3 months, and then I'd hold on to it for a month, and then I'd hold on to it for like 6 weeks, 3 weeks, almost to the point like when I get upset now, I'm only angry for like 20 minutes at the very most.
That's a pretty significant change.
But it's a practice.
Yeah. Having gone through as much counseling as I've gone through and read a few books, I read often something that I don't think is true, and I hear a lot of psychologists kind of run with, which is that anger is a secondary emotion, and that it's an iceberg, and that anger is just what's peeking up through the top. But I think that anger is a primary emotion, no different than happy, no different than anything. And I think that it's a protective mechanism. And angry is something that was designed to protect us, or anger was something that was designed to protect us, but unbridled anger is a much different thing. There's even in the Bible, it talks about, righteous anger, that you're angry at something because it's so against what you would believe God would want, that there's like this righteous anger, this righteous indignation is kind of how they refer to it. But I don't like when people talk about anger being a secondary thing because it almost makes it seem like you don't even know what you're mad about. Most of the time, you know what you're mad about.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't know what you're mad about, that's when it can be a problem. But like if you're at the grocery store and someone's just like pissing you off, like I don't know, someone in the self checkout in front of you keeps messing up or something, and you get a little frustrated, and then they go to pay and then they mess it up, and then they got to call someone over, and now you're a little bit angry because you were in a hurry and maybe you got to pee.
Yeah.
You know, like it's pretty clear to see what you're angry about. Now, whether that anger is justified or not is a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I found it interesting that you said not to allow my emotions to take the lead, because that's something that is a big point of contention for Megan and I at sometimes is this. She says that I'm far too logical at times, that I don't let my emotions in. And I say, no, I let my emotions in. I just don't let my emotions lead.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that all the time because I feel very strong emotions.
Mm-hmm.
They will get the best of me if I let them.
Right.
And I have to be really careful. And I don't know if it was like that for you, where it's like, no, I do feel very strongly. And it's not so much that you're blocking it. It's just that you're trying to take a step back so that they're not running away from you.
Yeah. So I think there is actually a benefit to anger. And the Bible does talk about righteous anger. For me, I would say the benefit to my anger is it reveals what my boundaries are.
That's good.
That's what anger does for me. Before it would be like, man, I tell you what, in my life, I knew how to harness anger, like keeping people away. I don't want to see you. And I think like, specifically like when you're talking about having your emotions lead the way, people have their perception of you if you're angry or not, you know. And even like now in the day that the stuff that we live in now, when we have social media and everybody has their opinions, we're upstairs talking about like political stuff and like all this stuff. And right now it's like when you are on social media and you use caps lock, you know, people are under the impression that they would be yelling at you because you have caps lock on or something.
Maybe
or
just like caps lock.
Or when you text someone and you're in an argument, they have this perception of that you're upset in a text message. You know, and I'm just like, and then when you see them, they're slighted at you because of the message that you're sending over text or whatever. It's like, that's why Jenny always says to me, is like, don't hit send, don't hit this. You know, if you are in a conflict, just think about your relationship that you have. You know, do you want the relationship? You know, I'll say this. Someone said something to me on social media and they actually unfriended me and then blocked me as well.
You must have done something real good.
Well, this dude like posts all this political stuff and like all this, you know, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, and they post something. And I said, actually, that isn't true, you know, whatever. And then they started firing back like 8 messages in a row. And I was like, hold on a second. What you're saying isn't true. I was like, you're not doing all this stuff. And then they got so upset that they blocked me and then unfriended me. And like, you know, I'm just like, well, why would you be so upset with someone that's what you did? And even in social media right now, you like unfriend someone and then it's like, oh, they're just done with me.
I just don't accept their friend requests. There's probably a few people who might come across this. They're like, maybe that's why he hasn't accepted my friend request.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a very private person. I know that sounds impossible, but it's like, I don't post much on there anyways. Why do you want to be friends with me? I don't want to see what you're marketing.
Oh, I hear you, you know, and I think like, so when you're talking about letting it go is like a multifaceted issue.
Yeah.
Letting it go on like Facebook and Instagram and letting it go, like someone cut you off in traffic, letting it go in your intimate personal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like a multifaceted thing of like not letting your emotions get the best of you and like having them be like all out of control.
Yeah.
Because when I was writing this one specifically, I was like thinking of like when my marriage was in trouble, and I would be and Jenny would say something to me and she'd be like blah 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 blah, and then she was working at a job where she didn't come home at 7, 8 o'clock at night. I was upset. The kids are like running me ragged, and then Jenny would come home and it's like our marriage wasn't in a good place. So if you're not in a good place and you're like wanting to have a conversation with someone you care about, there are some checks that you need to have that you're not angry,
Yeah.
right? Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? If you're any one of those four things, then you probably shouldn't have a conversation because it's not going to go well.
Yeah. I think learning, for me, I'm not great at letting certain things go. Like I will hold on to something, and it's not necessarily bitterness. It's more like things that disappoint me. I will hold on to them and try to like analyze it over and over again to get to this place of how can I do better the next time.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at the letting go thing similar to knowing when to engage or not to engage. Like, say you see somebody post something online. Should you even waste your time engaging with this person? Should you not? Should you just let it go? Are they a person that you even care about? And sometimes you might feel to the point where you need to engage. You need to do that. And then most of the time, not so much. But like learning to let things go, to me, seems a lot like learning when to engage and not to engage in certain things. Not necessarily identical, but similar.
Yeah. I think right now when me and Jenny argue or something comes up and we start talking, it's very easy for me to like bring up the past. Like, and I know like Zach and Jenny are very similar. They don't like the absolute statements. So when I tell Jenny, it's like, you always do this. You're always late. You're always this. You're always that. And that is like a source of contention for me. And then when we're arguing, I always say to Jenny, it's like, you always do this. It's like, and then I do something wrong and then I bring up the past, and then keeping records of wrongs is something that I'm trying to do better at. But, when you are in an argument with someone that you care about, you kind of always seem like you have to be right, and there's a devotional, I think towards the end, it's called The Line. And the line is like, me and Jenny are arguing. I see the start of it and I see the result of it. I see, this is the line. This is what happened. We have to talk about what happened right here. And Jenny is a whole picture person. She sees the whole picture. So when you have two different perspectives and you're in a conversation, it's kind of hard to like get over, what the whole issue is, because Jenny's like, well, it's like, well, we got our kids, we have this, we have that, we have our relationship, we have the family, we have this farm, we have the whole thing, finances, everything. She sees the whole thing. She's talking about the whole broad spectrum. I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about this is what started our argument and this is the result of it.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes you need to have like a different perspective of what the conflict actually is and like what is the worth holding on to that, because there's a worth in everything. And sometimes your scale of what is wrong is like, it's not, you don't have a healthy scale.
Yeah. Have you, this devotional that we're speaking about on this podcast reminds me a lot of a story. Have you ever heard It's like a story parable about the cheetah, the donkey, and the lion.
Mm-mm.
So I'll try to do it quickly and paraphrase it. So one day, a cheetah and a donkey are talking and they're discussing nature.
Mm-hmm.
And the cheetah looks up at the sky and says, "That sky is really blue." And the donkey says, "No, it's green." The cheetah goes, "No, that sky is absolutely blue." And they get into a little bit of an argument, and the cheetah gets angry. And the cheetah is trying to defend that the sky is blue, the sky is blue, the sky is blue, and won't let it go. And says, "We're going to take this to the lion because the lion's the king. He's the decider. We're going to ask the lion what color the sky is." And the lion listens to their arguments, and the lion essentially looks at the cheetah and says, "As a result of this argument, you are not allowed to speak for a week. Go your separate ways." And the cheetah quickly, before the donkey goes on its way, and the cheetah asks the lion, "Why did you, the sky is blue. Why did you not side with me?" And the lion says back to the cheetah that, "Of course the sky is blue, but anyone willing to waste their time arguing with an ass doesn't deserve to speak anymore." And it's just that whole idea of learning when to let go, learning when to look at it and be like one of the rules says, is this worth it for you to get so angry?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's not anger for you listening. Maybe it's something else.
Yeah.
But is it worth you getting yourself so worked up emotionally in a place, whatever the emotion is that you're getting worked up about the issue? Like, is it worth it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you arguing with an ass?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know that the sky is blue? Like, what's the point of having the argument then?
Yeah.
But sometimes being right seems more important than the issue itself, which is the facts.
Yeah.
And we get caught up in it.
Yeah. It's kind of like paraphrasing. It's like, you have to be right, but you're going to write yourself out of the relationship.
Yeah.
I've heard that one before. I mean,
I think Jenny has told me that one before.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I don't understand. It's like, you have to be right. Like, all the time you have to be right. I'm like, I don't have to be right. I said,
but I am.
But I am right. and I'll say this, when I'm in an argument, I always apologize, and Eli's starting to do that too. He's like, he'll say that he's sorry if he offends someone or does anything. He'll say that he's sorry. And then I do that too. It's like, well, I'm sorry that, whatever. But my issue isn't necessarily that I'm apologizing. It's like, I don't take it the next step further of letting it go and adjusting my behavior.
Yeah.
That's like my biggest, like, I don't know, Achilles heel. I think that's how you say it, and you're just like, I will hold on to it. And then, it's kind of like, why did I have to argue with someone on Facebook about something that I knew I was obviously right about, and he knew nothing about what he was talking about,
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, well, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, tell me a little bit about what journaling out your emotions looks like. Like, Jenny had, so when I was really struggling with anger, and I started writing the situations down in which I would get angry. Like, I wasn't necessarily journaling my feelings, but more of, this is what happened and I felt angry. Because of this, I felt this. And it wasn't necessarily me talking about what I felt, but just like, X situation happened, result, anger, result, depression, result, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Was it like that? Or was it more of like, I felt angry today, this is how it manifested? Like, how did you kind of work through that?
So I had to, when I was like redoing all this stuff for myself, I would like journal, and I would have to journal like how I got angry, why I was angry, what were my behaviors, what are the characteristics of my anger, And I would always go down to the next level, and I would give my journal to my counselor, and I'd say, "What do you think?" And then she'd be like, "Okay, you got angry. How are we gonna handle your anger here?" And then she would have me like journal more, and then she would have me journal more, even more than that, and take it to the next level to the point of, I know why I get angry. I know what I do when I'm angry. I know how to get rid of it, and I know how to let it go. But that is like a whole like process of like, man, so 2017, so that's a whole process of like 2 or 3 years. And I think what's interesting about us when we are like, it's kind of like going to school and you're analyzing yourself and you're trying to figure out why you do the things that you do. And you need, we have the podcast up right now. It's the Believe in Yourself one. And you said that you needed a third party to understand and give you perspective of what you're doing. But letting go and you being honest with yourself, you need that with that one person with the proper perspective of, is this healthy for you? And you have to be honest enough to say, well, yes, it's healthy for me, or no, that it's not healthy for me. And then you're starting to go forward with, with your health. And of course, you broke it down even more than that in that thing. There's mental health, there's physical health, and spiritual health. And the thing is when you're off, it affects like all three of them. Because I can tell you, it's like when I'm angry and I'm going to the gym, it's like I don't feel like weightlifting. I don't feel like getting on the bike. I don't feel like getting on the treadmill. I don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah.
So, and then when I'm angry, that affects my mental health because I don't feel like, I don't feel like doing any coping skills. I don't feel like sleeping. I don't feel like taking a nap. I don't feel like anything. Then that bleeds into like my personal relationships when I pick up Eli, and then Eli is like looking at me and he knows that something's off. And that even affects like when I go somewhere else, and then Rocky, he knows when I'm upset. Then that like bleeds into everything else. So when I'm off because of rejection. That started with my brain injury, and then it started with me getting molested. So when I felt slighted, I would always go to the bottle. I would always, do this. But then when I went to rehab and I got out, I was a dry drunk for a couple of years until I got healthy coping skills. And then Jenny inherited this whole mess. So you really have to like take, you have to study yourself, see the reasons why you're doing stuff, see the worth in it. And you gotta, you have a decision to make to either let it go or to not let it go.
Yeah.
And there's a benefit to letting it go. But if you let it go, that needs to be a practice of not picking it up. Mm-hmm. Because when our marriage was falling apart, it is very easy to hold on to stuff that Jenny said to me, right? So when we're fighting now and my brain gets triggered of reminiscent of the fights that we had before, it's very easy for me to pick something up that you said. But we made a promise to each other. What happened in the past stays in the past. We're not doing that. We said we're staying in our marriage. We're moving forward, doing all this stuff. But I tell you what, when I'm upset, it is very easy for me to sling dirt at someone else.
Yeah.
So, especially with Jenny, because that's the closest relationship that I have. And sometimes the closest relationship you have are the safer ones. So the people around you, man, they catch it, man. And that's not fair to them either.
Yeah, it's almost like you don't care if you wound a stranger because who the hell cares? It's like they're just a stranger. But it's like when you're angry and you want to let that anger out, you let it out on the people that are closest to you because you know it's going to do what was intended.
Yeah.
Just let out the anger. This reference to rejection hit home with me big because this is actually something that I've come to a bit of a revelation on myself this year, is that a lot of my disappointment stems from rejection, whether it be perceived or actual. But something as simple as like trying to start my business and trying to grow it online and trying to post these things and getting no engagement and feeling rejection from it.
Yeah.
Or something that really led to a big fight with my wife and I was over gift rejection, is what I would call it. Is like I would buy something for my wife and she wouldn't really like it. And I would feel rejected. Like you don't like the gift that I got you. And that was like this big rejection of me.
Can I tell you what I did? That, do not do this, by the way, but this is what I did. So Jenny did the same thing to me when we're putting our marriage back together, and she complained every year about the gifts I gave her. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, I'm not going to give her the good gifts anymore. One Christmas, I like got her Tupperware, like big, huge, the biggest box of Tupperware I could find, like
50 piece.
The 50-piece Tupperware, and she would open it up. It's like, what's this? It's like, well, you always wanted to take your stuff to work with you and like leftovers, so I thought I would, help you or whatever. And then I'd give her like simple stuff, like I'd give her like pots and like all this other stuff, and she'd be like, "This is the worst Christmas ever." And I was like, you know what? I said, you didn't appreciate any of the stuff that I gave you. I said, last year I gave you diamond earrings, like all this stuff. And she was like, this year you're giving me Tupperware and pots. It's like, what'd you spend on me? Like $50 for 10 presents. I was like, yeah, I went to the dollar store, got you this. She's like, you went to the dollar store?
The Dollar General.
The Dollar General.
He's a general.
Actually, it was the Dollar Tree.
Oh.
I said, I got you the best gifts at the Dollar Tree. I wanted to save money.
Got to go to the general.
Yeah, that was that was not a good Christmas that year. I was like, and then her parents came over and they kind of knew that something was up.
Yeah.
And they came over, and I think it was Jenny's stepdad came over to me. He's like, why is Jenny upset? And I looked at him like, I gave her Tupperware for Christmas. And then he took me outside. He's like, why would you do that? I was like, well, she didn't appreciate all the gifts I gave her last year, so this year she can not appreciate this one too.
Well, let me...
Never fight fire with fire, brother. It didn't work.
Since we're sharing war stories, let me tell you my biggest F-up so far in trying to avoid rejection. So Megan's 30th birthday was this year.
Mm-hmm.
And going into this birthday, and I share this not from a place of like, I'm proud of this. Like this is something that still deeply bothers me, and I'm disappointed in myself about it. Like I'm having a hard time letting this go. So about, her birthday's in June.
Mm-hmm.
So around January, hey, what do you want to do for your birthday? I think it'd be really cool to like go on a trip, go to Vegas or something. Well, we'll see where we're at. We were not doing well financially. So the chances of us being able to get, care for Teddy and be able to go off to Vegas for a couple of days and enjoy her birthday was pretty minimal. So I let her know right there, like, hey, chances of that pretty slim to none, but I'm happy to, see what we can do. Mm-hmm. March comes around. It's my birthday. I'm not a birthday person. I don't like to be celebrated. This is something that really bothers her. I always tell her, there's 365 days in a year and 8 billion people on the planet, which means statistically I share a birthday with over 20 million people. I'm not special. She gets real mad about that.
Yeah.
She likes to celebrate and I don't. Well, so my birthday comes around. I said, well, hey, your birthday's in like 3 months. So, what would you like to do? And, oh, well, I don't want to do anything. I'm going to DC for this work trip. I don't want to do anything for my birthday. Okay. 2 months out. Hey, your birthday's in 2 months. What do you want for your birthday? I don't want anything for my birthday. 1 month out. Hey, your birthday's in a month. What do you want for your birthday? I don't want anything for my birthday. Now, I know I'm walking into a trap at this point.
Yeah.
I know it.
Yeah. You can feel it. Yeah.
But to prove a point, I took her at her word.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anything. I don't want anything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, her 30th birthday shows up and she is flaming pissed at me when she gets up that day. And I'm confused. What did I do wrong? I listened to what you said, which is I don't want anything. I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
It was a trap and I knew it. But to prove the point, I went with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the thing is her thing was, I didn't want to tell you what I wanted. I just wanted you to come up with something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, much like you, I'm very sensitive to rejection, and I was tired of being rejected for putting in effort on things and like trying to do stuff and feeling rejected from it. So it was easier for me to not feel rejected and not make an attempt to do something and just take her at her word than to put in an effort at something and get rejected. Because I hate that feeling of rejection.
Yeah.
We have recovered since, but that one took a while.
Yeah.
We're in September now. We're still feeling after effects from that one.
Yeah.
Now, maybe Megan has read this chapter and she's let it go. Maybe not.
Yeah.
But
you know, it's interesting after when you're in your relationship and you slight someone, there's like this residual effect. And if, let's say for me, for example, I came from a family, if you're upset, you just ignore the person until you get it over with. Jenny's the type of person that she wants to talk about it. So when we're doing this stuff and we're trying to get over and let go of the stuff that we're doing, I have this thing where I stonewall people. It's like, I ain't talking to you. I'm not looking at you. Like, whatever. Like, there are times where I didn't even acknowledge Jenny's existence for a couple of days. And that pissed her off, that hurt her, like all this stuff. And then she was like, well, why do you do that? I was like, because I'm upset with you. That's what I do when I'm upset. It's like, you piss me off. That's what's happening. I was like, this is why I'm mad. This is a result of why I'm mad. But then Jenny's like, well, I was like, you ignored me. You ignored the kids. You ignored Rocky. You did all this other stuff. I said, everybody's getting the residual effect of your being upset. I was like, yeah. I was like, next time, don't piss me off. And we won't be there. But then when you're letting it go and you know why you're upset, you have to ask, like, the root of the issue. Is it worth holding on to? Or because sometimes if it's a big issue, you know, in the military, there's a terms like, we need to take the hill. You know, when you're taking the hill, it's like you're giving it all and you're taking the hill. Right. Yeah. So when I'm taking the hill, it's like I'm going all out to take the hill. But is it really worth taking the hill? Or is it not worth taking the hill?
I guess it depends if it's the hill you want to die on.
Exactly.
You know, I think a lot of men are unwilling to admit this, but they're very rejection sensitive. And it prevents us from being open because of that fear of rejection. And it's something that, as I've tried to work more on being vulnerable and open with people, that I've started to acknowledge that, like, rejection is a huge part of my emotional balance, and feeling rejected, whether it be, like I said, perceived or real, because those are two different things. You can do something and I can perceive rejection from it where your intention was completely not there.
Right.
So there's a quote by somebody, and I forget who it is. For some reason, my brain's going to Ben Shapiro, who's like a political commentator. And he was talking about that when somebody does something dumb, you have to assume that it comes from either a place of ignorance or a place of malice. And he's like, if it comes from a place of malice, that's not a good thing. That's a tough place to recover from. But most of the time it comes from a place of ignorance. And it's like, so that perception is more of, this person did something from a place of ignorance. That they're not an ignorant person, but ignorant of the situation or your rejection. And you perceived it as rejection. Whereas you purposefully try to slight me. You stonewall me for a few days.
Yeah.
It's different. If I send you a text message and you don't respond, I have two options. Assume that you read the message and are purposefully ignoring me, or assume that either you haven't gotten the message or maybe you read it and you just forgot. Like, give you the benefit of the doubt or not.
But by the way, I'm going to say I get this all the time because of where we live.
Yeah.
Not, here's what is happening in some of my relationships right now. Now that you brought that up, our internet sucks where we are, and we live in a metal house, right?
Yeah.
So our internet works from like 5 o'clock in the morning to 5 at night, right? And sometimes people send me something on Messenger and text, and I don't get it until the next morning, and then I send it to them, and then they're already upset with me. And then I have to call them, and I'm like, "Hey, man," I was like, "I don't think you understand, like, what's happening here."
Yeah. It's almost like you need a voicemail box for a text, like that if you don't respond within 15 minutes, it automatically sends a reply. I'm home. My internet sucks. I probably don't have your message.
Yeah, I wish my phone did that, because my phone does the whole you can't text me because I'm driving. My phone automatically does that. It's driving mode.
Yeah.
It's something that's in there. So when Jenny said something to me, it's like it automatically sends that. I wish my phone did that. It's like, sorry, Mike's internet sucks. He'll get back to you in the morning.
Yeah. Because like even if you use the focus mode and you put it on like sleep or away, all it does is like if they have an iPhone, it has a little thing at the bottom. Like if I go to text you, it'll be like Mike is away from his phone.
Yeah.
Still send message, and you can hit yes or no. Most of the time you'll just hit yes and know that, hey, that person's not going to get back to me. But like I use that as an example because you talked about earlier, like people assuming things based on their understanding of a situation, like typing in all caps and stuff. And it's like, I can assume malice on your part of ignoring my message, or I can give you the benefit of the doubt. I think that there's far too many people that are unwilling to give the benefit of the doubt because of past rejection.
Right.
And they don't realize how sensitive they are to rejection. I didn't realize, and this isn't me saying you people, you don't understand how sensitive to rejection you are. This is me talking about myself and explaining to you people out there listening that like, maybe look at it and think to yourself, has there been a previous experience that maybe I felt rejected over something and now I'm projecting that rejection onto this current situation?
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And I think there are not a lot of men that I know that are emotionally strong.
Or stable.
Or, well, most people I know are stable. But here's why I say men. You said that men have a lot of things that men suffer from rejection.
I just think, I think a lot more men struggle with rejection than would be willing to admit it.
Yeah. And the reason why I think that is because men primarily are the protector. And I'm not saying that men aren't like emotionally strong, but I think men have pride and ego. They're supposed to be the protector. This shouldn't bother me. So what happens is kind of like you're bearing all your emotions and all the stuff that, is bothering you. And then by the time you let it out, you let it out by someone who asks you a question in the midst of like a difficult circumstance. And they shouldn't, let's say you're at work, and it's like you're under all this pressure. You're supposed to do like a presentation to your boss or something. And a coworker just asks, hey, are you ready? And then you just go off on that person. I can tell you that's happened to me like a few times. Like Jenny, I had this expectation when I got married that my wife would help me out, like doing my uniform when I was in the military. And when she said no, I'm looking at her, I was like, you're not going to help me iron my clothes? It's like, no, that's your clothes. You iron it yourself. And I was like, that's a normal response. It's my job. I should take care of it. But when Jenny says that to me, I'm like, what are you talking about? You're not going to help me out here? You're my wife. Iron my stuff. And I'm just like, she's like, no, that's your job. You're in the military. You take care of it. I'm not getting in trouble for not iron your stuff properly. And what do you think happened? We got in this huge argument because I wasn't in a stable place more emotionally, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and like I think that first question that Jenny had posed to you of what does this really mean to you, and is this rejection you're feeling from others real or from past hurts, is a big thing, because emotionally we may block out the situation and hold on to the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And like our past issues, past rejections, past circumstances of life, we hold on to this point where, am I really mad at Mike for not answering my text, or is it reminding me of a time that I sent an important message to somebody and they completely stonewalled me, and now I'm projecting that? Like that's the whole idea. And I think that's what I really mean by like this emotional awareness that men lack. And I'm not over here saying like I'm the king of emotional awareness. I said earlier, I try to do this with my emotions, and I'm giving the stiff arm motion. I'm giving them the Heisman for those who are just listening, but it's like, it's easier to keep those at a distance because I know that they're volatile.
Right.
And they associate with past traumas.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want to admit that we have past traumas. A lot of men, we want to just, there's like this machismo thing of like, I'm tough and I'll just deal with it and I'm just going to grit it out. I don't think that makes you a tough person. I honestly think that makes you a weak person. I think that enduring it makes you tough, but pretending it didn't happen and putting it at a distance doesn't make you tough.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, holding on to it just makes me more stubborn.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm going to hold on to this because I'm not willing to admit that I'm wrong. Most of the time, that's what it is for me. And you said something about projecting emotions.
Projecting the rejection.
Yeah.
We should coin that one.
So
that's our term.
Yeah. So when I am projecting my emotions on someone and I'm like, God, I hate that person, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like projecting my emotions on that person. So every time I see the person I projected my emotions on, I'm just like,
you feel them?
I feel them, and it's like they suck the joy right out of me. And I'm just like, oh, that's why I think I said this before, is like, those people's like, I have a hard time like loving those people because of every time I see them, I see the emotions I projected on them every single time. I'm just like, dude, you're killing me. I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at this, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm great at recognizing my faults. I'm terrible at changing them. Like, I'm terrible at doing anything about it. And this is an area that I definitely need to work on, this letting things go and rejection sensitivity, because at the end of the day, it's my problem.
Yeah.
It bothers me that people can do something that stirs such strong emotions in me because it makes me feel weak.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I project a very strong emotion like anger, it makes me feel in control again. It makes me feel strong again. So I understand why I'm doing it, but my ability in the moment to grasp that is so childish.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I would say letting it go is definitely a process and definitely something that you need to work at for not like picking stuff up and not like further like damaging like the gap that you have with someone else with a argument or whatever the situation may be. But I'd say for me, letting it go is difficult. Primarily because I hear that one frickin' song from Frozen, man. Let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go. I'm just like, because Emily, when I first started doing this, Emily loved the movie Frozen, and so did Sophie. And so when me and Jenny are having a thing, I hear the girl singing that song. It's like, God, I hate that frickin' song.
Yeah.
I hate the Let It Go song.
I hate it too, but that's just because I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate, like, I don't know. I don't hate them. I'm not a big fan of movies.
Yeah. I think it's interesting if you look at like where we are, um, you know, extra extraordinary, what to fill yourself with, believe in yourself, and like all these things are like leading it up, and now we're at the let it go like chapter.
Yeah.
So
You know,
I think it's interesting because we just came back from the forgiveness thing. And when
Yeah.
we talked about forgiveness, we said the hardest person to forgive is yourself. And you're trying to get to a new place and you're trying to do all this stuff. It's kind of hard to let go of the mistakes that you've made, regardless of, because you want to live in peace, you want to live in happiness, or you want to live joyfully. You want to take a deep breath without second guessing yourself.
that'd be nice.
Yeah. So when you're trying to let it go, some of the mistakes that you made, especially like in social media, and you're like looking at what you press send on something and you're just like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Because how many times have you seen like on TMZ or, whatever the case may be, TikTok or whatever, someone like did something. Next thing you know, it's like, can you believe that they said that this happened at 2:00 in the morning, blah, blah, blah. They couldn't, whatever, and there's like, gosh, he must really hate himself if he did this. God, he must really hate like whatever. And then it's like, man, everything's blown out of proportion because they can't see what the true purpose of why they sent something out,
Yeah.
and then they assume about the emotions that you have. So this is like a multifaceted, like social media, interpersonal and personal deal here,
Yeah. Looking back at these questions and I guess these checkpoints that Jenny created for you.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting, number 2, of, is this person really rejecting you, or is your pride getting in the way?
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess I never thought about that part of it of, that there's this almost feeling of deserving, or feeling that it's necessary that you be treated or looked at in a certain light.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that pride of like, well, I'm Mike Sherbanenko, I should be treated this way, or I'm Zach Allen, I should be treated this way.
Yeah.
And it's like, is this person really trying to slight you, or is it your perception of your importance? Are you self-aggrandizing in a way?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a tough one, because that one, there's no way to really look at that other than, hey, am I being a little bit of a wuss here, or am I being a little too sensitive here? It's okay to be sensitive, but sensitivity combined with an ego is not a good place to be.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting concept of, is my pride getting in the way of me properly understanding this situation and not feeling rejected? And I know that we're talking a lot about rejection in this, but like, I think that's the core of like being offended, is like feeling rejected, feeling like your ideas or principles or values are being rejected.
Yeah.
And that leads to this feeling of being slighted.
Yeah. I think like we talked about before, like intelligence over your emotions. You really have to look at like the person that you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. The one thing like Eli does is he's at the point, I don't know, he ate dinner. He's at the point of, it's almost bath time, almost get ready for bed. And Eli is at the point of, he doesn't mean to do some of the stuff, and he doesn't understand like why he's doing some of the things. He's not like there yet. But there are times when he's like, no, I don't want to do that. And then he slap me in the face,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, the first time that happened, I got upset. Second time, not so much. Third time's like Jenny saw, it's like, oh man, he's going to blow his top. And I didn't. But sometimes when you're dealing with the person that you're dealing with, you know why they're doing it. If it's Teddy, Teddy's like, I'm upset. I want this toy. They're not understanding me. Eli's the same way. Eli's like, I want to play a puzzle, but next thing I know, he wants to color, and he's not like communicating it properly. But then I like pull out all the puzzles and I do all the stuff. I'm just like, okay, I get what he's saying. But if it's like my wife, me and my wife's biggest struggle is I always want to be on time. I never want to be late.
I like being punctual as well.
Yeah. So when Jenny shows up on time, I'm like, thanks, we're late again. It's like, no, we're on time. I was like, if we're on time, I would be seated. Rocky would be seated next to me. There we go. I was like, I don't want to show up to church at 9:30 when church starts at 9:30. So if like punctuality is my thing, you're not being punctual, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know my wife's love language, right? If I'm specifically not doing her love language when she's expecting it to, she's like, why are you being deliberate in this? Why are you pissing me off deliberately? Because one of the things that my wife likes to do, she likes to cook. And there was one time when I was watching the Super Bowl, my wife pissed me off. She made homemade lasagna from scratch. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, she pissed me off. I'm doing all the stuff and just like everyone's eating. I pushed the plate away. It's like, I'm not hungry. Jenny started crying. I'm just like, not having it.
Yeah.
So when you are in a relationship and you're going to hurt someone, you're doing that deliberately to hurt someone.
Yeah. And that's that idea of, is it coming from a place of ignorance or malice?
Mm-hmm.
Like the intention behind it.
Mm-hmm.
We know quite often what we have to do to piss our spouses off. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know what buttons to press, and sometimes we do it deliberately, like what you were saying, and sometimes it's on accident. And if we always assume it's deliberate, well, we're always going to be feeling slighted. If we always assume it's from a place of ignorance, then we're going to let people walk all over us. So there has to be some sort of analysis of the whole thing, but figuring that out, that takes time, that takes practice and experience. This isn't like something that, okay, I understand that it's coming from a place of rejection, things are going to be better now. No, it just, at that point, that's when the work starts, of like understanding how to not feel as rejected. Mm-hmm. But now I want lasagna.
So, and here's the things, like, if you have grown, you're in a different place of letting things go. You're in a different place of learning your emotions. So when you are in a relationship and you go backwards, you're deliberately going backwards, and you have a choice of honoring your spouse, earning her respect, earning her love, because we talked about this before. You can easily do things the cheap way, but if you're doing it the hard way, or the way that you should, like assertive, you're using your emotions, you're thinking about things deliberately, intentionally, and you're going forward and you want to be healthy, you're going to do things the right way. Yeah. But if you're just like, what, she really pissed me off this time, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think that's something that we've definitely, I'm pretty sure we've hit on, the idea of, if you feel that you deserve something, you can get it one of two ways. You can get it the cheap way, or if you feel that you deserve something, you can earn it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what you said there was not necessarily like a Freudian slip, but it was like the idea of the hard way. And I don't want you to take this as I'm pushing back against you, but more that providing context, because you said another word shortly after that that I think gives better clarification. There is a passive way to get what you want, and there is an intentional way to get what you want. And when you live in a relationship with intention, there's gonna be tension within intention. That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Tension in the intention. And in the passivity of it, it's like, it's that idea of just going through it of like, well, whatever happens, happens. If whatever happens, happens, then you can't feel rejected because you have zero expectations. Expectations are difficult because you feel like you should have some level of expectation of your spouse or your significant other or of the relationships of the people you hold close to you. But good relationships are low in expectation. And there's like this common ground of, well, I don't have to expect it because I know.
Yeah.
But you got to get to that place. That's tough.
Yeah, expectations on relationships and the place that you're going is very hard. I think another thing is kind of hard is it's kind of hard like being assertive sometimes, and sometimes you are like complacent and you're just like, man, I'm not feeling it today. I'm complacent. And I'll tell you something that's going on with me personally right now is ever since I've had chiggers, I always think like I'm itchy for some reason. I don't have like any chiggers. I have nothing like that, but I'm like, I'm itchy, right? And it's like this psychosomatic thing that's going on with me right now.
Yeah.
So last night I took Benadryl because it's like, well, if I'm itchy, I probably have an allergic thing, you know? But I wasn't assertive and I didn't tell Jenny. It's like, hey, I'm taking Benadryl and, you know, I'm also taking my sleeping stuff too. So I didn't tell her that. So when she called me this morning, she's like, hey, you were off last night. You know, and you were off this morning. What's going on? I didn't tell her. It's like, hey, this is what's happening. I didn't say that, you know? So when you're going forward and you're trying to like have healthy relationships, communication is like a huge thing here, you know, because when I feel slighted, communication, I don't communicate at all. People just see my body language. They see that I'm pissed off. And it's like the expectation of people interacting with me are very, very limited because they're under the assumption of my resting bitch face. And they're like, dude, he's just pissed off.
Yeah. I think it was important kind of how you came to a conclusion in this one. And you said the biggest thing to remember is that you're good enough and you have the power to choose your own things that harm you or to let those things go. But I mainly want to focus on that. You're good enough. If you don't, like, one thing that I've started to learn is if you don't value yourself, and this is somewhere where I struggle, you'll let people walk all over you, but also because you hold yourself in such low regard, you won't necessarily think that anybody gives a damn about you, kind of. And that's not a fun place to be. I know that a big part of my inability to be super successful with my business, like in like promoting this growth, this exponential growth in my business and my social media following, is like this idea of, well, who am I? Why should these people follow me? Why should they listen to me? I'm just another person. Anybody could give them this information. And I don't put much value in who I am, you know, that I'm good enough for these people to listen to, or that I'm good enough to help these people. And if I get myself too far down that rabbit hole, it greatly affects the way that I view myself, which then affects the way that I take in all the information that I'm receiving from other people. And I'm more sensitive to rejection then.
Yeah. And also, like, you said before, like the expectations that you have on relationships. So when you're going into something and you have a certain expectation about what someone's going to do. And we talked about, because Zach is very good at nutrition and he's very good at fitness. And we also know someone who else is really good at nutrition, right? So yesterday I met with a nutritionist. So since I know people that know about nutrition, they're very, very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
My expectation on going into that was this person's going to tell me like all this stuff. Same thing like you would tell me. But what happened is they said, oh, just download this app and put all your stuff in there and it should tell you what to do. And I was of the assumption, because the expectations that I have with different people, that he was going to like break it down is like, this is what you have to do, blah, 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 X, Y, Z. And that didn't happen. And I'm just like, I had a choice of being pissed off or like tempering my emotions and just saying, thank you very much for your time. Goodbye. Said, what do? I'm like, dude, you wasted my time for 2 hours. I drove all the way to St. Louis. You're a piece of crap. There's a difference of how you can handle yourself.
Yeah.
But you also need the sounding board too of when you're upset, because when you keep on stuffing your emotions, you know, it's kind of like you talked about the iceberg and people thinking that anger or being upset is a secondary emotion, which isn't true. There's happy, mad, sad, lonely, and confused. I think of that.
I don't think you're missing any, but
So mad is angry.
yeah.
So I don't know how you could say that,
Yeah. But there's a lot of people that in that field that will say, well, all of this is just anger is just coming to the surface as a result of rejection or as a result of embarrassment or as a result of X, Y, or Z. But the thing is so is happy.
Yeah.
So is loneliness. Like, you're only happy because a situation or circumstance arose that puts you in a mood of being happy.
Yeah.
Like, you experienced some sort of stimulus that made you happy.
Mm-hmm.
No different than angry, no different than sad. I've heard people before say that, people can't make you feel things. Like, you're responsible for your own emotions. But at the same time, people don't know what you've been through, and people don't know what triggers you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have a very strong response to things. And if you go around assuming that they're doing it on purpose, it's not going to be a good thing. And this is part of that emotional stability thing. And being stable in your emotions is when somebody pisses you off because you drive down to St. Louis and they spend 2 hours of your time to make you download an app, that you leave and maybe you handle that frustration in your vehicle of like, I'm frustrated, I'm going to decompress on this drive, rather than going, hey, asshole, why did you waste 2 hours of my time? Like,
yeah,
to their face.
Yeah.
Like, it's that maturity in learning how to handle things.
Yeah.
You mentioned your son slapping you in the face.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that my son doesn't mean to literally slap me in the face. Like, if I were to just walk up to Mike and slap him in the face, it would mean a lot different. It would be a lot different than if his son did.
Yeah.
I'm a full-grown adult. There's no reason for me to slap Mike in the face, really.
Hold on. Have you seen there's that whole slapping thing?
Slap fighting?
Yeah. And
I think it's more dangerous than typical fighting.
Yeah. So you're sitting there and it's like you're up against like that arm wrestling thing. You're like holding on.
Yeah.
And someone is slapping you in the face.
Yeah.
I watched one of those reels where a girl got slapped in the face. And then it was her turn. She went 1, 2, and she slapped him. And next thing you know, the lady like just dropped.
Yeah, like unconscious.
Yeah. I'm just like, Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Yeah. All that to say, if I am not mature enough in my emotional regulation, like if I'm not emotionally regulated or mature emotionally, if my son slaps me in my face, I might assume that he's doing something to piss me off or that I feel rejected. Like if I'm like, hey, Teddy, I love you, and he just slaps me in the face or kicks me in the nuts, both those things happen on a pretty frequent basis with 2.5-year-olds.
Yeah.
I know that he's not doing it on purpose, but it's still like there's still that threat response that my body goes through immediately, and I have to like check that at the curb immediately. And you have just as much awareness to do that with an adult or your spouse or anybody else,
right?
And take a step back and kind of one of my favorite things is the respond, don't react. Respond, don't react. And when you're responding to something, you're taking in the information, all of the information, not just what's being said or what's being done in the immediate moment, but the context of it. And you're gathering it all together and looking at it as the big picture, like what Jenny will do. And when you're reacting, all you're doing is looking at the immediate thing of like, I'm just going to stare at this one issue and I'm going to blah, like I'm just going to let it out. This has been something that I've been working on for a long time because I will ruminate over something. That's what I mean by like, I have a hard time letting things go. I'll replay a conversation in my head and be like, I should have said this and I should have hit him with that.
Yeah.
And this and that and the other. And I'll go on and on in my head about it.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Like, when Sophie, Emily, or Jenny get upset and they're around each other, they will be like, they will talk about it. Like something happened. I'll give you an example. Like we were supposed to meet with someone for our 501c3 and they're just a Zoom call and they stood us up. You know, I'm just like, it pissed me off. I had an expectation of the stuff that they were doing. I'm like, this is going to be amazing. Like all this stuff. So they stood us up, got in the car. Jenny was like, she was good. I was fuming. And then Jenny just kind of looks at me. She's like, why are you upset? Those people are ugly or something, you know? And I was like, why are you saying that? It's like, well, I was like, well, obviously they're not worth our time. They're not worth this. So, I don't know. Men have a hard time with like dealing with all that stuff. I don't know why that is. Why do we have a hard time holding on to stuff?
I think the reason why Jenny's second question is so important is the pride of you think that you're worth something. You think Mike Sherbanenko is of value that you don't stand him up for a Zoom call.
Yeah.
So there's a certain amount of pride in who you are as a person that you don't do that to me. You don't slap me in the face. You don't assault me verbally. Otherwise, you're going to get the business. I'm going to let you have it.
Yeah.
So there's this certain expectation that we put on other people in our relationships because of who we believe ourselves to be. And with men specifically, like it's difficult for us to put that ego or pride away sometimes when it comes to being slighted, because it's much easier to assume that it was on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Taking things personally is one of those things that is kind of rough.
He's giving me the eyes.
Rocky's a diva right now. He wants attention. But, you know, one of those things about like relationships and specifically Rocky, like I'll get upset with Rocky and Rocky will know that I'm upset because he can feel every single emotion, my anxiety and what's happening, you know? And the thing is I kind of view this, I'm going to make this statement. Okay. Rocky's job is to love me unconditionally. That's his job until like, that's his job. That's all he knows how to do. So it's really hard for me to be like hard on Rocky because no matter where I go, no matter what I do, no matter what I say, his job, he's going to love me unconditionally. And not to say Rocky's a god or anything, because he's not. He's my dog.
Dog spelled backwards is God.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But the thing is how do you like be upset with someone when all they know how to do is love you? How do you do that? I'm like, because when Rocky isn't acting the way that he should act, I get pissed off with him.
And you have an expectation of how he should act.
Yeah, because I'm the one that I trained him. He's supposed to act like this, you know. But also, it's up to me to take care of him going into a situation that he's prepared for as well. I'll give you an example. Rocky's biggest thing is he needs to go to the bathroom before we go and do something. So if he didn't go to the bathroom, he's like halfway into something, and he knows he's going to have to get up and go to the bathroom. I'm the one that's in charge of that. So when he's antsy, I'm just like, frickin' Rocky, what are you doing? When I'm the one that's responsible for it. It's the same way with my relationship with Jenny. Not to say that I'm responsible for her, but I am responsible for the relationship and how I conduct myself. So when Jenny is like doing all this stuff, and I'm just like, I have a determination of what I'm going to do. Am I going to hold on to this slight, or am I going to be assertive and do this? Because holding on to people who wronged you and holding on to all those wrongs is very difficult. So, and we even talked about projecting. So let's say you go to Walmart and there's 20 people that you see in Walmart and you project your emotions on all 20 people. Chances are your trip to Walmart won't be a very happy one. And when you
really is a good trip to Walmart.
Well, that's true, but and when you project your emotions onto someone and you're trying to get over whatever the hurt is, it's that much harder to come to a common ground with someone when you project your emotions on them.
Yeah. And a lot of the time it leads you to a rough place. Like, I'll continue in this Walmart example, but specifically with work. There are a lot of people who are working menial jobs and they can't stand their coworkers. My coworkers are idiots and they're stupid and this and that and the other. And they get so frustrated with their coworkers. And they get so frustrated with their job and how dumb their boss is and how dumb this job is. But they can't quit because they need a job. Just remember that if this is just a job to you, don't assume that this is somebody's dream.
Yeah.
A lot of these people, like when I started doing work overnights at Walmart, there's so many people there that you would look at as like this failure to launch or burnout is how you would kind of refer to them. And that's a harsh judgment of those people.
Yeah.
But in all reality, this overnight job at Walmart is not their dream job. When these people were kids, they had dreams and desires. They wanted to be firemen and astronauts and doctors and professional athletes. And if you go around projecting this idea of failure from yourself onto these people, you're going to be looking at your coworkers with all the things that that you feel about yourself in that situation. Yep. You're going to become very pessimistic and very nihilistic about the world around you. I know this from experience.
Yeah.
This isn't me assuming anything. This is me telling you what happens from experience, not just with me, but with working with those people at Walmart.
Yeah.
When you're disappointed in yourself, you're often disappointed in others.
Yeah.
When you're frustrated with yourself, you often become frustrated with others. That is projection.
So I think it's interesting when you're talking about like projection and working with others. One of the biggest reasons why I reenlisted in the military when I was at Fort Stewart was because I had horrible supervisors. Horrible. And when you're in the military, you can make people do some pretty stupid things, right? So I had a soldier that he shoplifted from the PX, and I got a call at like 2:00 in the morning from my supervisor. It's like, hey, you need to go pick up your soldier. He's in he's in jail. He got caught shoplifting. Went to go pick him up, and had to write a counseling statement on it, had to counsel him before he was released. And I'm just sitting there, and my boss called me. He's like, what'd you do? What was his punishment? He's like, well, I didn't give him a punishment. It's like, well, why not? And he's like, well, you're going to punish him. He's like, why does he need to be doubly punished on this? He's like, well, you need to give him a punishment. I'm like, okay, well, I'll give him a punishment. And what I did was, I asked myself, what was one thing I could do to another person to make him not shoplift anymore? So I made him do a sign that says, I got caught shoplifting. And he had to stand outside that store with a sign all day long. I got caught shoplifting. And I will tell you, like,
That's rough.
Yeah, I will tell you that crushed that dude. And I'm probably assuming that it probably took him a long time to get over that.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm sitting here, and I got in trouble for that too, because I humiliated that dude.
That bordered on cruel and unusual to them.
Yeah, so I got called on the general's carpet, and he's like, why'd you do that? And I told him, I was like, I did that because I asked myself, how can I stop this person from shoplifting? And that's what I came up with. And that was so bad that what I made that dude do, that my chain of command didn't give him a punishment because how bad that was. And I remember had a guy that didn't he didn't shine his boots properly. So you know what I made him do? I made him vacuum the rain with a shop vac. I said, I don't want to see any rain. I don't want to see any rain on this parking lot. It's up to you to get rid of it. He was up there for hours, and he was mopping and vacuuming the rain for hours. I got in trouble for that one too, by the way.
You were kind of a dick.
Yeah. But you know what's funny is, I won't say this is funny because I was a dick. When these guys went to war and they came home, I was like, well, how was it for you? It's like, dude, putting up with you is much worse than going to war, is what I was told. True fact. Can you imagine you're sitting there and it's like you did something wrong and you had to vacuum and mop the rain while it's raining?
That's a rough one.
Yeah. Next time, shine your boots, you won't have that problem.
Yeah.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
The challenge that you gave the readers for this week or for this lesson was to make a list of things that they need to let go of and that are harmful for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is really important because you can't fix things that you're unaware of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this isn't something that you can sit down and do in 15 minutes. So the reason why I brought this up as we kind of come to a close here is that if you're doing this list might take a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
This might take longer than that. Like, this is something that you might keep adding to for the rest of your life. So yeah, you might get a few good ideas out there to start, but this is something that will continually grow because someone's going to piss you off.
Mm-hmm.
Something's going to happen, and it's going to marinate in your head. It's going to build and build and build, and you're going to need to let it go. Or you're going to, maybe you start working on your family of origins and you start discovering and remembering things from your past that were pretty effed up, and you got to remember to let them go.
Yeah.
And even when you say, I let it go, it's like forgiveness. It's a process. And just like in Matthew, how many times should I forgive my brother? 7 times 70. It's this endless process of letting things go.
Yeah. So I'll put an alibi to that question.
Yeah.
And here's the alibi. So when Pastor Jesse was counseling me and Jenny, if you have a wrong with your spouse and you didn't tell them first and you're airing it in public, you probably shouldn't do that.
Yes, very true.
And here's why I'm saying that. So I did this because my social worker and my therapist, they told me to do it. They told me to write every wrong that I have had so everybody knows. So when I went to Pastor Jesse's office, I read that. And when I read that, here was the result of that conversation. Pastor Jesse looks at Jenny and she says, "What do you think?" And Jenny's like, "Well, I'm not happy. This is the first time I've heard it." And Pastor Jesse asked Jenny again, "Is like, what do you want to do?" Is like, "Well, right now I want a divorce." So when you are in the process of going forward in a relationship that's important to you, there's a way to do it like properly. And I would be like, make sure your person isn't the last to know.
Yeah. And I would say take that even a step further with anything. Don't your first thing like shouldn't be to get on social media and air dirty laundry, whether it's your laundry or somebody else's. Like I cannot stand when I log into social media and read people's complaints. I don't engage with them, and I don't understand why other people engage with them. Especially like the anonymous stuff. Like if you don't have the freaking stones to call the person out,
Yeah.
you shouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
And you know, that's just what it is. Like that's I guess kind of my final thought on that. It's like the Bible is pretty clear on this. If you are at enmity, and I use that word broadly, but if I have a disagreement with Mike, I first go to Mike. If Mike won't listen, I then go to Mike with a brother. If Mike won't listen with a brother, then I go to Mike with counsel, which is multiple people.
Yep.
And if then I shouldn't give a damn about Mike from that point moving forward, essentially.
Yeah.
Like that I should just let that relationship go. So we've now just jumped to this public broadcasting of anything that we're struggling with. You shouldn't be. And I'm sorry to should on you, which is something that I've learned in the last couple of years about shoulding and not shoulding on people. But it's like you shouldn't be airing that stuff. Just like what you said, go to that person first. Try to work it out. Try to come to some sort of conclusion, because that problem is with you and them, not you, them, and the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Or anyone who needs to tune in. And all that's going to do is escalate the situation.
Yeah.
Heighten it.
Yeah. So letting it go is a process, and you always have to start somewhere.
Amen. Any final closing thoughts on this one? Or have you let it all go?
No, I think so there's a theory that someone shared with me on a text, because I have an issue with letting things go, specifically when it's in difficult relationships that I have. And the theory is the let them theory. You know, if people are going to leave your life, let them. If people have their opinions, let them have their opinions. You know, if people are going to do this, let them do that. That should not affect you. You know, if you're letting them affect you, you're taking the choice to pick that up. So if you're trying to let things go and you're trying to get over hurts, don't pick up other people's stuff and you know, be the emotional mercenary. You don't need to do that. So
all right. Next week, we're going to go over number 8, my friend Mac Jackson. We're going to learn a little bit about his friend Mac and the lessons that he learned in that situation. And then I guess the following week, we're going to have a little bit of a free form conversation and just chit chat. Toodaloo.